All right. Hello and welcome to another WISP podcast. In this podcast, I want to show the diagram of how to wire a CPE matched up with a AirCube and feed it by a POE that feeds both of them. And the CPE that I'll be using will be one of these. And the AirCube I'll be using that I've used actually to do this setup is the ISP one, the one that sends out only 2.4 gigahertz. Now you can use either one. You can use the AC or the ISP. Depends on if you want 2.4 and 5 gigahertz or if you just want 2.4. I use 2.4 because I put them in a box, so I need something that will send a signal a long distance to get through the box and get into the RV. Now, in a home, you can use either one because it's not in a confined box or anything. It's actually in the opening in the home, and it will work a lot better. But I have to say, the 2.4 AirCubes in a box, I've had them send out a signal 70, 80 feet away from the box that it's actually in, and I'm still getting somewhere around 20 and 30 megabits per second down. And that's because that's the speed package they actually had. Now, open the traffic shaping, when it was off, I was getting somewhere around 50 to 70. So it's pretty much just being inside of a box really don't affect it much. And I got videos on the channel showing that it works very well. But getting to the way I wire them is you take the POE that comes with this radio. It's 12 watts. You have to have one that will give you enough power to feed your CPE, and usually they're somewhere around like 4 to 6 watts. AirCube's max is 5. And if you get one that's 24 volts, 12 watts, that's enough to feed the CPE and the AirCube, and it don't matter which AirCube you use. You take the power supply, which is the POE. On the POE side, you feed port number 1 on the LAN and the POE in. Which you can see right here. POE in, that one right there. You take your CPE and plug it in the WAN of the POE out. And the WAN is the wide area network. In other words, the one that is receiving the internet, regardless how you're receiving internet from a modem or a CPE that you set up. That's where the internet goes in that feeds the AirCube. The port LAN and the POE in is port 1. This is port 2. This is port 3. This is the WAN and the POE out that feeds the CPE. Now you can turn the power, the POE on and off on that port if you're not going to feed a device. But to set it up with a CPE, you have to go and log into the AirCube and turn that on for that port, so it will send out 24 volts. And that will give this CPE power, which will receive the internet, sends it into the WAN side, and it will give internet to the AirCube. Then you can plug in devices on LAN here, and also since this is plugged, the PoE injector is plugged into the LAN, this makes this port here available for internet as well. So you can put like a switch, or if the client wants a direct connection, instead of using the Wi-Fi, you can run from this LAN, or this LAN, and run them a wire, and it will actually give them a direct connection from the AirCube itself. So you have 3 ports. Now the difference between the ISP and the AC has 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, and also it's faster speed. And that will be according to your setup that you're trying to do. In most cases, the ACB AirCube ISP 2.4 would be enough pretty much in any application in this, unless you need short distance and use 5.0 frequency for getting the maximum speed out of it. But if you're going for long distance, 2.4, the ISP would be the ideal one to use. And you know I got to have my coffee. Now, I had someone to ask me in the setup that I had, when I had a CPE feeding a switch, and then I fed multiple AirCubes at different lots in the RV park. They asked, why didn't I put instead of putting a PoE feeding each cube at each lot, why didn't I just put in the box here at the CPE, put a PoE switch that would put out 24 volts to each one of the AirCubes, so I wouldn't have to use a PoE at each site. The reason is, if I send out PoE from the CPE with a PoE switch, the wire from there would have to go into the LAN PoE in to get power to the AirCube. Well, the problem is that also that wire will be sending data. The internet has to be plugged into the LAN to get the AirCube to work. So I can't plug it in one and it needs to be plugged in the other and split it, unless I take the wires and split it, but that's a lot of extra complicated way to do it. I would have to take the 4 wires for the PoE and put a plug there, and then take the other 4 and put it in another connector and put it in there. It can be done, but why go all that headache when I can just run a Ethernet wire to each one and carry just data and not any 24 PoE, and just feed the data, the internet, to the cube, and then use a PoE that comes with each CPE. And if I don't use a CPE on everyone, I'm just going to use one. These are not but like, I want to say like $6. So when I buy the AirCube, I just purchase one of these to do it that way. Now, if I'm going to set up a CPE with an AirCube at each site, then the power supply that comes with the CPE is powerful enough to feed itself and the AirCube. So I don't have nothing else to buy. I just buy the CPE and buy the AirCube, and the power supply, the PoE that comes with a CPE, will take care of it all. Now, if I'm just going to buy one CPE and have, say, 5 AirCubes feeding 5 different lots, I just put a regular switch, unmanaged switch up here, and run a Ethernet wire to each one into the WAN, and buy more of the POEs, which is, less than $10 a piece, that will feed the power to the POE, to the AirCube alone. I do not turn on the POE output when I put a switch when I have multiple of these AirCubes actually feeding from one CPE, because I don't want power sent back to here to the switch is where it's going to go. It's not going to go to the CPE, it'll be going to the switch, and it will mess up the switch. I have the CPE here, and the POE that comes with it will be feeding itself. Then the cables that coming out to the AirCubes is nothing but data lines. That's why I cannot take a POE switch and put it in here and feed the AirCubes, because the power line would have to go into the LAN POE in, means the data that it would be sending would not be feeding the AirCube, because it has to go in this line. It has to go in this port here. That would be the port for data in. This was for the port with the POE in. It can be done, but you have to take the ends and split them, 4 on this one and 4 on this one. It's just unnecessary when you can just buy one of these POEs and just feed the AirCube in each box. And when they turn the power on that lot, it turns on the AirCube. Because if you have, even if it was designed that way, it's easier to keep AirCubes and POEs in stock than it would be a POE switch. Because if that POE switch goes out for some reason, that means everybody's out. All of them. Everybody's down. If this POE in lot 6 quits, lot 6 is no internet. Go up there and change the POE, get them power. If the AirCube quits, lot 6 only is without internet. Now, of course, if this CPE goes out, of course, everybody's out. But if you really want to have redundancy, you can have 2 CPEs and be able to turn that second one on if that one ever goes out. But with my experience with Ubiquity equipment, that pretty much, in my experience, the only time it ever went out is when one time a storm came through and took out, it took out this the exact one right here, this one, because I wrote bad on the bat. I put it in, and 3 days later, a big old electrical storm came through, and it took it out. That's the only one I ever had a storm come through and take out. Now, I had a couple radios up on a 200-foot tower. Electrical storm came through, took them out. But other than that, that's the only ones I ever had taken out of all the hundreds and hundreds of ones that I've actually installed. It's easier to keep these in stock because it won't just feed the AirCube, it feeds your CPEs. So you keep these in stock in case when you have a CPE somewhere installed and it goes out, you can take this one to feed it, you can take this and feed it, take this and feed that and that. I mean, so it's universal of different devices that this POE can actually feed 12 watts. So it's not like you have to keep this for this and this and this. It's just like this one will feed multiple different devices in case their POEs go out. But that's the reason why you can't take one CPE, put a POE switch, and feed all the AirCubes, because is not the right port. One is for data and one's for PoE in. Now you can feed it that way, but then the router part in the AirCube does not work. The eyepiece that's coming from here goes straight through and goes to the Wi-Fi, which you have no control over the AirCube remotely. So it's pointless if you're going to want to use it in the UISP software. I've tried that, and that's what happens. It does not show up. It does give out Wi-Fi, but it's the same eyepiece here. It don't go and get natted in the AirCube and send out the IPs that you set this AirCube up for. So the way to do it is the data goes into the WAN, and the PoE will feed the LAN with the PoE in. And if you're going to set it up as this is just as is, there's not going to be a switch. This will feed the LAN, log into the AirCube, turn on the PoE for the WAN, which would in turn feed the CPE. That is the reason why I can't feed multiple AirCubes with a switch the way I have it set up, because it's the way the AirCube here is designed. Now, if they had it that the PoE in was the WAN, yeah, it would work, because I can send 24 volts into this port and the data in this port, and it will feed the whole thing, but it's not. It's separate. Now, if they had an extra port somewhere up here or something that, you know, one port does all, 24 volts and the data, then yeah, but that's not the way they got it designed, so you have to split it. But that's how I set up a AirCube. As you can see where it says WAN, which is marked actually blue right here. That's the WAN. That's where the data goes in, and this is where the power goes in, and you log in to get the PoE 24 volts coming out of here to power your CPE. And these two down here are data. You plug in whatever you want to get internet. At this port is actually giving it. And this over here is the USB power supply. If you don't use a PoE to feed it, you can use a micro USB to feed it, and you need one that's 5 volts and I think it's 0.5, I do believe. And I do believe the ISP 2.4s, they come with the USB power supplies with them. I do believe one of them does and one of them don't. I can't remember which one. Don't remember. But either way, you can get a USB and power supply. And let's see, does it say on the bottom? Let's see, it's small writing on this thing. Let's see if I. It is 5 volts at 1 amp is what that requires in the USB. And the 24 volts is like 0.3. I mean, it's practically nothing. That's why that 12 watt PoE right there can feed the AirCube and the CPE at the same time. And that's why I want to use and going to use these CPEs from now on, because the power supply itself that comes with it is enough to feed itself and the AirCube. So it's just a simple setup. If I go to somebody's house, I put this on their house, receive it, run the wire in, plug it in here, plug in the PoE that came with this, feed this, and this, go log in and turn the PoE on the WAN side, and it will give power to here. So you just buy this device, and everything you need except the internet wires that go between them. You got it. So it just makes things simple, because if I brought this and brought the other radio that I used to buy, I would have to buy this. I have to buy that radio and another POE so it will feed it. This situation, you don't. And the price between the two CPEs, between the other one and this one, is $1 difference. No brainer. And plus, this one, it rejects noise a lot more than the other radio. So if you got a very noise environment of that 5 gigahertz in there, this is definitely the way to go. But that's how I have it wired up to get it to work. Get your CPE. The power supply comes with it. We'll feed the cube, and the cube will continue to power right through and feed the CPE as well. And it don't matter which AirCube you have. It will work that exact same way. It just makes things simple. You don't have to keep different things in stock. You pretty much, you buy 2 devices and you got your wire and it's ready to go. But thanks for watching. Thanks for watching, and I will continue to make more videos like this. People ask how is it wired and all, so I figured instead of trying to chat with them only in a video, I'll make a video actually so everybody can see it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.